Today, I want to talk about something that I believe is central to the way we, as followers of Jesus, should live out our faith in the world. It's something that Jesus himself made clear during his time on earth, and it's something that can be sometimes hard for us to grasp. That Jesus didn't come to condemn or judge the world, in fact, he came to save it. He didn't come to condemn it, so why should we? Why should we judge people? Why should we condemn it? Jesus didn't come to condemn us. Let's start by remembering the famous words in John 3 verse 17. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn it, but to save the world through him. You see, Jesus' mission was not to point fingers and shout, "You are all doing it wrong." Instead, his mission was to reach out with compassion and love, to heal and to restore, and to invite people to something better. And the good news is that he still does that today. Jesus' heart for the world is still one of redemption and not condemnation. And if we are to reflect his love and grace, shouldn't we be doing the same? We live in a world that is full of judgment and condemnation, especially at the moment. It seems like every day we hear someone being put down for their mistakes, their choices, and their actions. Often, that judgment comes from people who claim to represent God, people who unfortunately have forgotten to do what Jesus came here to do. Maybe you've experienced it yourself. You mess up. Instead of a helping hand or a listening ear, you get a harsh finger pointed at you. It can be discouraging, but here's the thing, that's not the heart of Jesus. Jesus came to show us that something different. He didn't come to make us feel small or insignificant. He came to make us feel loved, seen, and forgiven. Jesus didn't walk around condemning sinners. In fact, he went out of his way to be with them. He was known as the friend of sinners, as in Matthew 11 verse 19. He didn't shy away with hanging out with people who were far from perfect. He sat down with the tax collectors, prostitutes, and all sorts of people considered outcasts in society. Why? Because he saw their potential, not just their failures. He knew everybody, no matter what their past, had the ability to experience God's grace and transformation. We too are called to be friends of those who are struggling. We're called to love and not to judge. We don't need to tell the world how wrong it is. The world already knows that. The world needs to see the hope of the gospel, a message that tells people that no matter what their mistakes, there is grace available to them. When we talk about Jesus' ministry, it was always about an invitation. He didn't stand at the street corners shouting, "You are all sinners, get it right or else." Instead, he invited people to follow him. He said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." He extended his arms wide and said, "Come and see what life with me looks like." He invited people into a relationship, into grace, and could transform their lives. Think about the way he interacted with the woman caught in adultery. The religious leaders brought her before Jesus, ready to stone her for her sin. And instead of condemning her, Jesus said, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to cast a stone at her." They all left. One by one, they left. And then Jesus looked at the woman and said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go now and leave your life of sin." Do you hear the difference? Jesus didn't dismiss her sin, but he also didn't come to heap shame on her. He came to offer her a new way, a new path, and the opportunity for a fresh start. So why do we, as followers of Jesus, often condemn and act as if our primary focus is to judge the world around us? Why do we seem so focused on pointing out what's wrong with the world and pointing out what's wrong with people rather than extending the same grace that Jesus offered? We are supposed to be like Jesus. Shouldn't we be following his example? One of the most famous passages in the New Testament comes from Matthew 5, where Jesus calls us to be the salt and light to the world. But what does that really mean? Let's think about salt for a moment. Salt enhances the flavour of food, doesn't it? It brings out the best in what's already there. When Jesus calls us to be the salt of the earth, he's calling us to add flavour to the world, to make things better, not worse, to be a present that brings joy, peace, and goodness wherever we go. It's not about being critical or negative. It's about bringing out the best in people, showing them that there's more to life than what they might be living for. And light chases away the darkness. It reveals the truth, it makes things clear. If we are supposed to be the light of the world, it means that we are to shine the light of Jesus' love, truth, and grace into the dark corners of the world. This world can feel heavy and dark sometimes, especially right now. People are desperately looking for hope. Instead of contributing to the darkness with condemnation and judgment, we are to bring the light of love and truth that sets people free. Being salt and light doesn't mean that we need to stand on a pedestal and shout from the rooftops. It means we are called to love well, to show up for people, and be the hands and feet of Jesus wherever we go. It means we have the privilege of extending grace and showing people the hope they can find in Jesus. We'll go back to Jesus did not come to condemn, and neither should we. We are called to be a reflection of his love in the world, to offer grace, to invite others into the relationship with God, and to show the world that they are valued, loved, and worthy of redemption. Our job is not to judge, but to love, to be the hands and feet of Jesus in a hurting world. So what does that look like in practical terms? It's like offering a listening ear when someone is struggling. It looks like forgiving others when they hurt us, or choosing kindness over criticism and empathy over judgment. It looks like extending the same grace Jesus extended to us, even when it's hard. The world doesn't need any more condemnation. It needs more compassion. It needs more grace. And if we are to follow Jesus, that is exactly what we are called to do. Let's close with this reminder from Jesus himself. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand. It gives life to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. So let's go out there today, not as critics or as judges, but as bearers of light and bearers of salt to a world that desperately needs it. Let's be the ones who offer grace, who love without condition, and who point others to the hope found in Jesus Christ.